ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं
आनंदम
सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्मि। So we are seeing the expression of the disciple who is sharing his knowledge, who is sharing his experience of the Supreme Reality through various verses, and the last one we had seen was 510. So 511 onwards. कर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्व खलात् कर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्व खलत्व मत्तता जडत्व बद्धत्व विमुक्ततादयः बुद्धेर्विकल्पा न तु सन्ति वस्तुतः स्वस्मिन् परे ब्रह्मणि केवले द्वये। कर्तृत्व भोक्तृत्व, doership, enjoyership. Khalatva, being manipulative, cunning. Mattata, being intoxicated. Jadatva, jada literally means inert, but here it means the tamas, the laziness, lethargy. Baddhatva, bondage. Vimuktata, liberation, etc. Buddher vikalpa, they are all imaginations of the buddhi, the states of the buddhi. Natu santi vastutaha, they don't really exist. Where? Swasmin pare brahmani kevale advaye. In me, who is the Supreme Brahman, who is non-dual, absolute self. That last line is important. Otherwise, somebody will say, oh, bondage is not in me, liberation is not there in me, laziness also is not there in me, cunningness is not there in me, so I am free. As a jiva, I have all these. As long as Dehatma Bhav is there, all these are there. As long as one thinks I am a limited being, then these are the states that the jiva experience. The jivas experience this. So, buddher vikalpaha, they are modifications of the buddhi, and right now our identification is there with the buddhi. So, we go through this. So, the objective here is not to say, oh, they don't exist, to deny them. To negate the cause of theirs, which is the body identification, which is the Jivatma Bhav. To rise above these is the objective here. It is not to be in a denial mode and say, no sadhana is required. Why are you even doing any sadhana? It doesn't exist also. Many people do that, They are called half-baked Vedantin. Half-baked Vedantin means one of the ways is this. So if somebody is sitting in meditation or contemplation, they will come and make fun of them. They will say, what are you even meditating on? You are not even bound. You are already one with Brahman. So why meditate? then where is your mind reveling in? My mind revels in Bhoga Vastu, but meditation is not required. Why? I am Brahman. That is called half-baked Vedanta. And they will make fun, they will make fun of other people as though they have realized the sthiti of Jivan Mukti and they are making fun of other people. Jivan Mukti anyway doesn't make fun of anybody because everybody is, there is no everybody first of all. And if at all there is everybody, then they are appearances of oneself. So the Jivan Mukta doesn't make fun. A sincere seeker also will not make fun. A fool also doesn't know anything. Where will that fool make any fun? So who makes fun of other people? It is half-baked people only, who have no clarity. In the name of clarity, there is an illusion of clarity, bas. So the objective here is not to deny the sadhanas. Objective is to come to that state. Swasmin pare brahmani kevale advaye. I am that pure Brahman in me. When one comes to contemplate in this way that I am pure Brahman, in me there is no duality, in me there is no bondage, there is no liberation, there is no cunningness, there is no sattva. All these are states of the buddhi. That level of high level of vairagya is required to stand apart, saying these are states of the buddhi. When temptation arises, Janmashtami went, Makhan Mishri one likes to eat, but diabetes is there. Now can't eat Makhan and Mishri. That time one should say the craving for Makhan Mishri also is an illusion. It doesn't exist in me. Then, and not eat it then. Then one is practicing. One is doing the sadhana to detach. And this has to be done then in contemplation. Having withdrawn from everything, then one contemplates saying, Swasmin pare brahmani kevale advaye. I am that pure Brahman. In me there is none of this. So Jiva Bhav goes in that way through steady contemplation on who I am and what I am not. The next one doesn't have a meter, I think. Santu vikara prakritir dashadha shatadha sahasradha vapi kimme asanga chitas tairna ghanaha kvachid ambaram sprishati. Santu vikaraha prakrite. The vikaras can be there in prakriti. Dashadha, 10, Shatadha, 100, Sahasradha, 1000, Vapi. In these many ways, the vikaras can be there. In 10, 100, 1000, meaning countless may be vikaras, because every moment Prakriti's nature is to change. So there will be thousands, countless of vikaras actually. But that is in Prakriti. Kim me asanga chittaha. In me, it can be chittaha or chitaha. Both will mean the same. Chitaha actually is a correct one. Kimme asanga chitaha tairna ghanaha. In me, which is unaffected pure consciousness, and ghana means homogeneous mass. There is nothing else inside it. Chit ghana means only Chaitanya. Like we say, let us say there's only milk in the pot. Then there is only milk. There is nothing else inside it. There is no, curd is not put inside it, or honey is not put inside it, or nothing else is put inside it. It's only milk. In the same way, there is only Chaitanya. There is no duality in that. There is no Jadata. There is no Vikara. There is no impurity. None of those earlier dualities given in the earlier shloka. So in me, asanga chitaha, taihi ghanaha, na, these vikaras are not there in me, who is a mass of consciousness. Kvachidambaram sprishati ghanaha. Ghanaha also means here it is clouds also. So if you say chit ghanaha, you take it together, then it is mass of consciousness. But ghanaha in the analogy is ambaram ghanaha na sprishati. The sky is not touched by the clouds. Clouds, as many can exist in the sky, but the sky will never be affected. How they may be rain-bearing clouds, heavily loaded with water, but the sky doesn't become wet. See, even as a visualization, this is a very good exercise to do actually. One visualizes that I am like sky. Of course, sky is inert, consciousness is not inert, but if one wants to visualize, one can visualize that. Yeah, I am like the pure sky which remains unaffected, and all the thoughts are like various clouds in me. They come, they go. Nothing happens to me. My focus is on the sky. I am that sky which accommodates everything, without which nothing will remain, but which gets affected by nothing. Whatever is inside the sky, in the space, doesn't affect. The sun can't make the sky hot, and the water can't make the sky make the sky wet. The cloud can't make the sky wet. So the idea here is that our nature is that asangaha. Kinme asanga chitaha taihi ghanaha kvachidambaram na sprishati. So these changes, they can come. See, the objective is this only, that we are not trying to become thoughtless. We are trying to come to this state of detachment from thought. For that, yes, thought quantity can be reduced so that the detachment becomes easy. When it is very fast, then it is not easy. So the thought flow, so many thoughts, when they arise every minute, then to say I am the sakshi of these thoughts, very difficult, because I am getting carried away in the flow of thoughts. So the various sadhanas to quieten the mind, relatively make the thoughts lesser, and through steady contemplation, then one glides beyond thought. So it is not an attempt to become thoughtless. Thoughtlessness is a byproduct of steady contemplation to realize the absolute, ki I am the pure consciousness. Then it doesn't matter to me whether thoughts arise, thoughts don't arise. How does it matter? But if I don't know this, my whole focus is only on I, thoughtless, and then finally one manages to come to that state also. Then one says, now I become thoughtless. Finished, gone. That thoughtlessness is gone. By that thought, I have become thoughtless. So the objective in Vedanta is not to become thoughtless. Objective in Vedanta is to detach from thought. Asanga chitaha. I am pure consciousness which is detached. So for the sky, it makes no difference if too many clouds are there or no clouds are there. The sky is sky. Same way, there can be thousands of vikaras, and vikaras are all existing at prakriti. Prakriti means right from the unmanifest to this body. Everything is in prakriti. Unmanifest, then total mind, and then this ahankara, then the buddhi, then the mind, then the senses, body, sense objects, the whole thing. Prakritehe dashada shatada sahasradha. It can be as many, but that doesn't affect. So this is a nice visualization also to do, and even conceptually to understand for one's own identity. I am not the thoughts, I am the consciousness. See, Gurudev has given one nice example in the second paragraph here. He says, when I am unattached, I am not affected by the changes taking place in that realm. For instance, as long as I am attached to the Bombay office, the worries of the Bombay office are my worries. The moment I am transferred to Pune and I hand over charge at Bombay, then the Bombay problems are no longer my problems. Simple analogy, but effective one. To say that as long as I am attached, then only I am worried. If my attachment is not there, then I am not worried. We are not worried about childhood toys. We are not worried about losing something to which we are not attached. But when we get attached, then sorrow and all the problems come. So, in the same way here, before realization, one is attached to the body, mind, intellect, people, things, beings, all that. As one keeps dropping those attachments, mind becomes subtler, quieter. Through steady contemplation, wake up to the absolute. Then one realizes that, oh, there was no two at all. There are so many vikaras which are there. They all were only appearances, not real. So that what was said earlier as prakriti, vikaraha, santu vikara prakrite. Now that is little bit elaborated. Ki what is the meaning of prakriti here? Because see, whenever we think of prakriti, we always think only of nature. So prakriti word brings about the thoughts about trees and birds and plants and rivers and mountains and ecology basically. But in Vedant, prakriti has different meaning. These plants, birds, rivers, etc. are only an effect. Prakriti is, that's why it's called Moola Prakriti. It is the basic power of Bhagwan. It's the primordial force of creation. That's why Moola Prakriti. And Prakriti for us in Vedant reminds us always of Purusha, because Prakriti doesn't stay independent. Prakriti is the power of that Supreme Purusha. And that Purusha can remain without Prakriti. Prakriti cannot remain without Purusha. Whenever the Purusha chooses to manifest the world, the power of Prakriti is invoked and the Purusha becomes Ishvara, and then the whole Srishti is created. So the Srishti Kram also is from Avyakta to Vyakta. We think only of the Vyakta and one part of Vyakta as Prakriti. We don't think this is Prakriti. Outside this is Prakriti. That's a general conception about Prakriti, ecology and all this. That's a very small part of Prakriti. Nature. And that nature is not sentient by itself. It is sentient because of consciousness. So, what is that Prakriti? Now that is elaborated here in this 513. Avyaktadi sthula paryantametat vishvam yatra bhasamatram pratitam vyoma prakhyam sukshma madhyantahinam brahmadvaitam yattadevaham asmi. Avyaktadi sthula paryantam etat. So in this one line, Prakriti is described. From Avyakta to the gross, everything. So Avyakta is the first. Then comes total mind, which is the first manifestation, Hiranyagarbha. Then from Hiranyagarbha, the total mind, the Srishti gets created. So the Ahankar, Mahat and Hiranyagarbha, the total mind, they mean the same thing. The 5 elements, then this 5 senses of knowledge, mind, then 5 senses of action, prana, then the body, then the world of objects. In that sequence it happens. Again, we should never forget that sequence doesn't prove anything is real. Just because it's in a sequence doesn't make it real. In a magic show also sequence is there. But doesn't mean that that is real. In the dream also sequence can be there. Maybe the whole dream is not sequential, but parts of the dream there is quite a bit of sequence may be there. Just because some sequence is there doesn't make it real at all. We are stuck in that. Logic means cause and effect, and the moment we think cause and effect, we think it is real. Cause and effect doesn't make it real. But because cause and effect in this case of the world itself is a part of unreal projection. We say that rope is the cause and the snake is the effect. That is because we are not ready to see the rope, so we say okay, snake is real for us, so we say okay, the cause of the snake is rope. But when I see the rope, then I realize snake was not there at all. Where is the question of cause and effect? That we never got produced. The where cause and effect in that. In the Samadhi Avastha, that's what the Jivan Mukta realizes. Where is the world? There is no world at all. There is only consciousness, and simply this drama is going on. So cause effect is a part of the delusion created in the world. But we can use that to go to the source. Same way here it is. Avyaktadi sthula paryantam etat. So we have to trace back. Vishwam yatra abhasa matram pratitam. This whole universe is only an appearance. Just abhasa. Vyoma prakhyam sukshmam adyanta hinam. Like the sky. It has no beginning, no end. Brahmadvaitam yatta devaham asmi. That Brahman which is without any parts, that Brahman alone am I. Brahma advaitam yat tadeva. That alone I am. Not that I am Brahman while I am contemplating, and then after that I am a jiva. Functional role, even if I may take up. The actor takes up a role, but actor never forgets I am the actor. Actor doesn't say till the actor is not playing the role, I am the actor. Then the moment the actor takes up that role, then the actor says, no, now I am only the role. Which actor, what actor, I don't know anything. This role alone exists and this alone is real. No. While acting also the actor knows I am this actor, I am not that role at all. Same way, that is what has to be maintained by us through the day. When we start the day with contemplation, I am Brahman, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. Back of the mind or the bhavana, it's not about just a thought, it's about the attitude. Deep down, I know that I am Brahman. And playing these different roles. These roles, whatever functionally has to be done, I will do it in the role. But this is not real. Mind becomes very strong and remains unaffected. Oh, but that will be very boring. Then I will not feel happy. I will not feel sad. I will not feel, pain. I will become insensitive. I will become indifferent. Nothing like that will happen. In fact, our sensitivity grows. Our compassion grows. You see, look at all the great masters, how they have lived. Because we see oneness. When we are in the state of withdrawal, we have come, sitting quietly to contemplate. That time we focus on I am Brahman, there is nothing else, there is no other reality. When we come out of that state and we transact with the world outside, deep down we start understanding and, attitude is all this is divine. It's a play going on. So one doesn't become insensitive at all. We are talking at contemplation level. Please think about this seeker's mind. Who can do contemplation steadily? One who has purified the mind already with Karma Yoga. At Karma Yoga level, which is the first step purification, there itself the seeker purifies the mind, saying this is all expression of the divine. I am serving Bhagwan. I am not doing anything for anybody. Not even for me, not even for others. I am doing this to serve Bhagwan. Over. At that state itself, the mind has become pure. Then only contemplation is possible. So inside, outside, within contemplation, outside contemplation, the attitude is all this is divine. I am that divine, pure Brahman. That's why I say Brahma Advaitam Yat Tadeva Aham Asmi. That alone I am. This is the experience now of the student. But for an advanced seeker also, this is applicable in terms of the sadhana. That one says Brahman alone is all this. So deep down one remembers that very clearly. Today we don't remember that. Today we are carried away by Jiva Bhav. So whatever happens in the role affects very much. How could he say so? How could she say so? Why did they do like this? Why didn't they do like that? Baap re baap. Who are you? I'm Brahman. But then why are you getting affected? That, sometimes it happens. That is our condition, because, the Karma Yoga proper sadhana has not happened, upasana has not happened. So we are right now a khichdi. Some Karma Yoga also we are doing, some upasana also we are doing, then Vedanta also we are studying, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, full. Put all inside, make nice khichdi. But what else is a option? I'm not saying there's anything wrong in it. All I'm saying is, because there is such a mixture, we should be very clear about the standpoints. Earlier, the sadhaks used to prepare themselves and then come to Vedanta. The student has come, he has gone through whole life and has come with intense vairagya, saying ki I Sharanya Manya Gyada Hamna Jane, you are the only refuge and I don't have anything else. I want mukti from all this tap of samsara. And ready to let go. The mind has become subtle, sharp, single-pointed, purified, and then that student has come. So we are carrying it parallelly. We are doing Karma Yoga also, Upasana also, contemplation also. For us, these three are happening. So Gurudev used to say, even Shivananji, Aurobindo, all of them have said in their ways. Sri Aurobindo said, integral yoga. Shivananji said, synthesis of yogas, yoga synthesis. Meaning, apply all the three. While living in the world, doing duties, with the attitude of Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga is not possible without Bhakti and Upasana. So remember that all the actions are dedicated only to Bhagavan, and have, Ishta Devata, and then worship that Supreme Lord, and spend every day some time in singing the glory of the Lord, doing some japa, all those things. And spend time in contemplation. Study and contemplate. Integrate Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. All the three integrate. Objective is to come to this line. Advaita, Brahma Advaitam Yattad Eva Aham Asmi. That alone I am. So inside, outside, the bhav should be, I am that Brahman alone throughout the day, 24/7. That in Bhakti Marga is called Ananya Bhakti. In Jnana Marga it is called that steady contemplation, that the mind remembers all the time, I am Brahman. Here, of course, for the student, it is the experience, I am Brahman. For us, it is a sadhana. Sarvadharam sarvavastu prakasham sarvakaram sarvagam sarvashunyam nityam shuddham nishchalam nirvikalpam brahmadvaitam yattadevaham asmi. So you see, these are three verses, each of them ending with this same line, Brahmadvaitam yattadeva aham asmi. Sarvadharam, that which is the adhar, support of all. Sarvavastu prakasham, which is the illuminator of all the things. Sarvakaram, which is the nature of all forms also. So it is the adhara also and all the forms also. Substratum also and the form also, both. Sarvakaram. Sarvagam, it is all pervasive. Sarvashunyam, and devoid of everything also. What is its true nature then? Nityam, eternal. Shuddham, pure. Nishchalam, undisturbed. Nirvikalpam, beyond thought. That Brahman, Brahmadvaitam yatta deva aham asmi. That Brahman alone am I. So again, assertion and negation. So, Sarvadharam, Sarvavastu Prakasham, Sarvakaram, Sarvagam. Assertion. Sarvashunyam, negation. Nityam, Shuddham, Nischalam, Nirvikalpam. So Nirvikalpam again is negation. Nityam, Shuddham, Nischalam, assertion. So Sarvadharam, the Adhar of everything. Either we say Adhar of everything is Bhagwan, or we say Adhar of everything is Brahman. In the world, it is ulta. Adhar of everything is matter. Matter produces everything. So one is going on doing research on matter. Matter is the material cause of the universe, but the material cause by itself does not independently exist. It exists because of the intelligent cause. The infinite alone, matter came from infinite only, from consciousness, from Prakriti, from Purusha, Prakriti came. Prakriti by itself is Jada, it is matter. But so if we don't accept consciousness, then what is Sarvadhara? Sarvadhara becomes Jada Vastu, it becomes matter, number one. That is for world outside. If you take it subjectively, who is my Adhar? Meaning, on whom do I depend? Who is my support, my strength, my refuge? It can't be power, it can't be money, it can't be name, it can't be fame, it can't be goals, it can't be progeny, it can't be people, none of these. Adhar can only be Bhagavan. Why? What is the meaning of Adhar? Adhar means that which is the support. That support has to be steady or not. If the support only is not steady, whatever it is supporting, everything will collapse. In the world, what is steady? Except Brahman, except Bhagavan, there is nothing which is steady. Just now we saw all the vikaras, they are belonging to Buddhi. In Brahman, it does not exist. So either I say I am that Brahman, pure consciousness, that is the Adhar of the whole universe, the appearance of the whole universe, it is the substratum. Adhar can mean substratum. So support, substratum, depending on what level we want to take it up. If we consider creation as a superimposition, then it is a support. Sorry, it is a substratum. But if we think, no, it is real, then at least think that from, if the changes are happening, then what is supporting that change? What is supporting that change is the absolute changeless, or we say God. Prakriti is supported by Purusha. Then it becomes Adhar. So Sarvadharam. So who is my Adhar? I have to ask that question. It's a nice bhajan. Mere to Adhar Sita Ram ke Charanaravinda. Beautiful bhajan it is. So who is my Adhar? Is the Lord my Adhar? Satguru is my Adhar. Param Guru is my Adhar. Brahman is my Adhar. Who? So Sarvadharam, that which supports everything. No, Swamiji, my Adhar is myself. I am a self-made person. Very good. I don't depend on anything. Excellent. Try moving one finger. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but Ramana Maharshi, when they asked Ramana Maharshi, can you prove God? That's all he did. If you are capable of understanding it, you understand. Otherwise, Ram Ram. He didn't explain. He said, can you prove God? That person must be an adhikari. That's why Maharshi did this. If the person is absolutely raw, the person will come back thinking this Maharshi is crack. Anyway, it doesn't make a difference to Ramana Maharshi, whether he thinks whatever about Ramana Maharshi. But that's what he said. One finger we can't move, one eye we can't blink without the grace of that Supreme. He is the Adhar. Upanishads also say that only. How the Devatas forgot Bhagavan. They won. They won in the battle against the Asuras. And they started rejoicing. They had a party. success party. And they didn't call Bhagwan, they forgot Bhagwan. Not that Bhagwan felt insulted, but Bhagwan said these people are trapped in their own ego that will pull them down. So he did the whole Leela, manifested in the form of a yaksha and then one blade of grass. Agni Devta can't burn that one blade of grass without his grace. Vayu Devta can't blow it away without his grace. Amazing. What all we think we can do by ourselves, nothing we can do by ourselves. Adhar is Bhagwan alone. Here it is Brahman. Without consciousness enlivening this equipment, nothing can happen. Computer without electricity is zero, nothing can work. BMI without that power is zero, it will not work. So Sarvadharam, Sarvavastu Prakasham, and it is that which is illuminer of everything. So what does this mean? Sometimes what happens is Adhar which is there gets affected by the Adheya, meaning the support gets affected by what it is supporting. Let us say example, suppose we say earth. Now the earth is supporting all of us. Earth is affected or not? Terribly affected. What all we have done as human beings to this earth, completely destroyed it almost. So the support can get affected by what it is supporting. Sometimes suppose we say at even emotional level, we are helping somebody who is going through some low phase. But this person is going through a terribly low phase. And for some time you are able to, help and make that person feel strong and, make that person feel good and all that. But that person is in a very terrible state. After some time it starts affecting the person who is helping. Earlier there was one person in depression, now there will be two people. Because it starts affecting, it's not easy. So many times support, one who is supporting can also be affected. So the next word which is saying Sarva Vastu Prakasham is the illuminer. That is to say that this is a support which never gets affected by what it is supporting. The illuminer is never affected by the illumined, yet it is illumining, and through illumination it supports. So nothing happens. Purusha will never get affected no matter what happens in Prakriti. If Srishti is there, Purusha is not affected. If Srishti is not there, also Purusha is not affected. That is called Sarva Vastu Prakasham. So on one hand, I am that Brahman, which is the Adhar, substratum of the whole universe. At the same time, I am the illuminer, so nothing will touch. Like the sky and this example. No? Everything is in the sky. The sky is the support of everything. But nothing can affect the sky. Now imagine sky as an element remains unaffected by anything that is happening. How will Brahman get affected? It doesn't get affected. And today, any small little thing is enough to disturb me. Smallest of things. And I am that Brahman in which multitudes of creations can rise and fall. I am the illuminer, nothing happens. What a gap from a finite jiva who is affected by every small little thing to that infinite reality who doesn't get affected by anything. And that infinite reality is me, Brahma Advaitam Yat Tadevaham Asmi. So Sarvadharam, I am the support of all, I am yet unaffected, illuminer of all. Acha, what you are supporting, is that different from you? No, Sarvakaram. Generally the support and what it is supporting will be different. In this case, what it is supporting also, it is same. So for example, snake is nothing but rope. As long as we are seeing it though, so we say, okay, there is a snake and there is a support of the snake, which is the rope. The rope is as though illumining the snake. But what is the snake? The rope only. This whole universe is what Sarvakaram is, appearance of Brahman. Not Brahman has modified, produced, evolved to become this. No, it is an appearance, Sarvakaram. So if it is an appearance, where is it? Is it in one place? No, Sarvakam. It is everywhere. It's not one small part. You know what Swamiji it is said in the Upanishad, one part only became the creation. Purusha Suktam also said, Pado asya vishwa bhutani tripadasya divi. One part is manifested, three parts are unmanifest. Acha, very good. Now try making four parts of infinity, you try. That's a poetic expression to say that this entire universe, which is so big, which is, unfathomable, that universe also is only a part of his glory. How glorious should that be? It is a metaphor, that's all. Now don't become mathematician at that time and say, okay, quarter is this manifest, so 3/4 is unmanifest. It is only to make us aware that this Purusha is infinite. Infinity cannot make divisions. And it is changeless. So Sarvagam is all, it's everywhere. And it's beyond everywhere also. Because space itself, Sarvagam comes into play when there is space. Space comes into play when there is mind. Mind comes into play, then only space and everything is possible. Form and all is possible only then. Brahman is beyond that. And that Brahman I am. So Sarvakaram, Sarvagam and Sarvashunyam. Nothing is there in it. So these are two levels. Absolute level, there is nothing in it. At a relative level, if I see something, then it is the support of that. You should not get confused. You decide what it is, whether it is support, whether it is the forms, what is it, or whether nothing is there. Now three different things you are saying. No, it is all one and the same, seen from different levels, that's all. Sarvakaram, Sarvagam, Sarvashunyam. Nothing exists in that. The snake was never produced by the rope. Simple. If I am at that level, then the earlier words get negated. The higher level will always negate the lower level. In Vedanta, we should not forget that. From higher levels, when we see, the lower levels don't exist or they get negated. So Sarva Shunyam. So it's not a contradiction. Then is that state a blank state? No, Nityam. It is eternal. So blank could be eternal. No, Shuddham. It is purest. Meaning Chaitanya is the meaning here. Nityam, Shuddham, Nishchalam. It remains unaffected. And Nirvikalpam. It is beyond all thoughts, beyond all modifications. Then what is it? Brahmadvaitam. It is that Brahman alone. Yat pratyastasesha maya vishesham pratyagrupam pratyaya gamyamanam satyajnanantamanandarupam brahmadvaitam yattadevahamasmi. Yat pratyasta ashesha maya vishesham. It says that which transcends the endless modifications of Maya. Brahman is that. Maya has all vikaras that we just saw. Brahman doesn't have any. That which transcends all the vikars of Maya. So, Ashesha Maya Vishesham. Where is that? Pratyagrupam. It is the inner self of all the beings. So that's the best part. The Supreme Brahman is the inner self of all being. Inner meaning as the pure I, Aham. Pratyagrupam. Pratyaya Agamyamanam. And it is not possible to grasp this through any support. Pratyag is inside. Pratyaya meaning a symbol, support. Using any of that, one cannot grasp it. meaning one cannot objectify the consciousness. Pratyaya agamyamanam. Then Satya Jnana Anantam Ananda Rupam. It is of the nature of existence, Sat, changeless existence in 3 periods of time. Jnanam, knowledge. Anantam Ananda Rupam, infinite bliss. So Sat Chit Anand and Satyam Jnanam Anantam, both have got combined here. Satya Jnana Anantananda Rupam. Because some people get confused. There it is said Sat Chit Anand. Here it is said Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Is it a printing mistake? Anand has become Ananta. No, it is same. That's a different word. Satyam Jnanam Anantam, Satchit Anand. Anand and Anant are same. True Anand is that which is Anant. Bhuma Vai Sukham. What is infinite, that alone is true happiness. Yeah, rest is all now, Bhuma Vai Sukham. Alpe Sukham na asti. In that which is it is finite, there is no Sukha in that. But the Maya makes us think that in Alpe Sukham asti Bhuma Vai na Sukham. For us, Sukha is there only in the Alpa, chota things only. No matter how many small things we collect, small pleasures we collect, it can't measure up to infinite Anand. But our mind thinks like that. The life is meant for what? Enjoying temporary pleasure. Maximum temporary pleasure that I enjoy, that much glorious is my life. So what they say, live life to the fullest. What is the meaning of live life to the fullest? Enjoy maximum pleasure in as many ways as possible. Every moment should be pleasurable. Try everything for it. All, travel, adventure, and all kinds of wild things, and what unimaginable things that have never been done by people, all that, then you have lived life to the fullest. That is one way people think about it. But from Vedanta standpoint, what is the meaning of live life to the fullest? Live life realizing the fullest, that is Brahman, that is live life to the fullest. Because that is true Anand, that will never go. This will all perish. At the end of the life, there is nothing, not substantial. What one is carrying forward is tremendous amount of Bhogavasana. That's all. Maximum Bhogavasana. Craving for more and more and more, it will be there. No, someday one will reach saturation point like that. One will not reach saturation point just like that. For that time it may be, but that vasana it has left inside, it will again manifest. So, Satya Jnana Anantam Ananda Rupam. So, Ananta and Ananda are same. Real Ananda is in the Ananta only. Real Ananda is in knowledge. Real Ananda is in knowing I am pure consciousness, which is changeless existence. Think about it. Do we have these three as the sources of our Ananda? That I am not the body, I am the pure existence which never gets negated in past, present and future. I am that. Ananda is in that. In the understanding of that is the true Ananda. In the knowledge that my nature is pure consciousness which illumines, which never gets affected by anything. And in the infinite, that real Ananda only is in the infinite. It is not there in the finite. So how much am I able to detach from the finite? Bhoga asakti. Not that one can't enjoy life. One will enjoy, but that is not the main objective. One is not hankering after it, craving for it. One knows that is a small reflection of the inner bliss. Whatever temporary pleasure we get is actually not out there. It is in here. And it is a small, why do we say it is a small part of the infinite bliss? Because the mind is thinking that it is coming from outside. One. Two, because it is thinking it is coming from outside, it will be limited only. But if one actually observes, it is the quietude of the mind and this Ananda of the Atma, which is revealing through that quietude, but that our attention is not on that. So we think it is coming from outside, and it comes, which is very limited because the object is limited. And our mind doesn't remain quiet for a longer time. That's the main reason actually. The next desire erupts again. So that quietude of the mind, because of which the ananda of the self was being experienced, is experienced momentarily because the mind is not available. Mind is again gone behind some other desire, some other object, some other imagination. So every ananda we experience is a lesha of that. Yat saukhyam buddhi lesha leshata ime. Shakradayo nirvritaha. In the Manisha Panchakam it says. A drop of that infinite bliss. On that survives this Indra. Devraj Indra's pleasure is supposed to be very high. People who desire heaven and great, standard of living, comforts, enjoyment and all that, those people, for them Indra is a very high position because they want to go to heaven, do punya karma, go to heaven. In heaven also there are levels. In that highest level is Indra. Now that Indra is surviving on the drop of a drop. Lesha leshata ime. Of the ocean of bliss, which is consciousness, in which the yogi Ajivan Mukta is reveling. Now imagine, what am I sacrificing for what? If Indra only survives on the drop of the drop, then one little ice cream ananda I have, then what is it? It is a drop of the drop of the drop of the drop of the drop. And one is happy with that. See the power of Maya. The supreme bliss, which is our nature, which is beyond all Maya. Ashesha Maya Vishesham. That is our supreme nature, and Maya has trapped us as though in this petty little small Ananda. And one is reveling in that. So here he says, no, I am not all that. I am Satyam Jnanam Anantananda Rupam. And that Brahman, Brahmadvaitam, Yattadeva Aham Asmi. I am that infinite Ananda alone. Nishkriyosmi avikarosmi, Nishkalosmi nirakritihi, Nirvikalposmi nityosmi, Niralambosmi nirdvayaha. Except one word here, all the other words are starting with na. Nishkriyo asmi, avikaro asmi. Except that avikaro asmi, all other words are starting with na. Nishkriyosmi, Nishkalosmi, Nirakriti, Nirvikalpaha, Nityosmi, Niralambosmi, Nirdvaya. All adjectives of Brahman, pointers of Brahman are all starting with na. Symbolic, na means to negate. All negation, nicely. So Nishkriya, I am devoid of all activity. Karta bhav is not there, that's what it means. Nishkriyaha, Nishkriyosmi. Avikarosmi, beyond all change. Nishkalosmi, beyond all parts. Nirakritihi, I don't have any form. Nirvikalposmi, beyond thought, beyond modification. Nityosmi, I am eternal. Niralambosmi, there is no support. If everything is being supported by Brahman, who is the support of Brahman? Nothing. It is a self-supporting system. Brahman is truly self-made. Brahman is truly self-supporting. We are Jiva. We may have the ego, I am self-made, but really self-made is Brahman, Swayambhu. Niralambosmi, Nirdvayaha. No duality. Again, pointers of Brahman. So this, we may say, array, this is same pointers coming again and again. Something new we want. That is the challenge. Our mind wants new, variety. Brahman is the oldest, Purana. And yet it is the newest. So these are not for, just intellectual study or for grasping some new concept. No, this is meant for contemplation, and different ways the contemplation, the shlokas are given. Whichever appeals to the seeker, one can take that and contemplate. Here the student is expressing the joy of realization. Imagine the person who has experienced that Brahman, when one wants to share that joy, in different ways one will share, because infinity is the experience of that person. Actually, what this person is sharing is very less, because no matter how much one speaks about it, one will never be able to do any justice. The entire Vedas cannot glorify that supreme. What to talk of one book, and in that a few compositions, few verses which are a part of this composition, which describe Brahman as the experience of this student. So the mind, you see, of ours is such a thing that it keeps craving for new. Externally, okay, it has a certain approach, but when we come to spirituality, it is not something new that we are craving for. The existing thing is what we have to keep reflecting in new ways if required, and destroy any false notions that we have to realize the absolute. Because this craving for new will keep us extrovert outside. Craving for new will keep us away from what is now existing. It takes us away from the moment, from the present. That is what happens with the craving for the new as far as spiritual knowledge is concerned. So that's why Gurudev also used to do this, in our tradition. Whenever we complete a text, we again start from the first verse. We read first verse at the end of the text. Why? Saying ki just go through this text again and internalize it and realize that's about it. New texts are required for only certain types of intellectual quests. That is, some people have certain types of queries, questions. Sometimes one book may not answer all the questions. So to satisfy their intellectual thirst, maybe they take up different books so that their doubts get cleared up. But otherwise, this craving is not required for new things. In the beginning of Vivek Chudamani also you saw that. Shabdajalam Maharanyam Chitta Brahmana Karanam. It's a huge forest of words. Mind can get deluded completely. Chitta Brahmana Karanam. So what should I do then? Take up one book. In that one book also, book like Vivek Chudamani is such a big one. Mark, these are my favorite shlokas. These help me to develop sadhan chatushtaya. These help me to do atma anatma vivek. These help me to do mananam, so that reflection on any doubts I have, those doubts get cleared. And these are mantra shlokas for nididhyasan, which are pointers of Brahman. Then these are the shlokas which help me to do other sadhanas. So like that one should mark and then live it. That's all. Otherwise we get into scholarly thing. This commentary also I should read, that commentary also, this person said like that person said like that. But what are you doing? Are you practicing? No, I am still gathering knowledge. Are lifetimes go away only in gathering knowledge? And still it will not be enough, because this is an ocean. If Brahman is an ocean of bliss, scriptures are ocean of knowledge. How many scriptures are there, especially in our culture, the glorious culture? So many books are there. One can keep reading. See, I'm not saying don't go through other texts. What I'm saying is make one text your favorite text. Just leave that text. Or one shloka or a few shlokas and just leave. And every day reiterate those so that we practice those and it becomes a part of us. That is evolution. All the Upanishadic seekers you see, they have come to that or not? Did they read many books? I am not talking about Uttam Adhikari like Nachiketa and others who realize then and there. Even the Madhyam and Manda Adhikari of Upanishad does not go on reading many books. They take a 1, 2, 3, some few books, read, then reflect, contemplate steadily, and then realize Brahman. That's all is required. If somebody wants to use this as a scholarly profession to earn a livelihood, then they may do. Then it is bhuktaye, not to muktaye. That is also Vivek Chudamani said. I'm not saying it's bad or anything wrong, but I'm saying what is the objective? The objective, if it is to realize, then all these shlokas one can use whatever one feels like, because a wide variety is given. And different pointers of Brahman are given because which appeals to whom we don't know. And moreover, I said earlier, there is the joy of the student. The student is expressing happily. Just imagine, from bondage, from lives and lives of bondage, this student has now realized that bondage never existed. I am Brahman. This whole thing was a mithya, and is reveling in that state of bliss. So, ordinary achievement people do and they go overboard in trying to express their joy. Here too is Brahman, realization of Brahman. So this, we may feel the student is going overboard, but he is not going overboard. You cannot go overboard in trying to describe glory of Bhagavan or Brahman. Never. Because it is indescribable. So for today we will stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.